They tell us it's just imagination. But what if every world you picture is actually a memory, echoing from somewhere else in the universe? I'll let you be the judge. Welcome to the Origin frequency. Your frequency is currently aligned with Tales from the Origin.
Where every frequency holds a story, and the universe has no limit. Infinite worlds, infinite timelines, infinite perspectives. The Lyran Accounts, Episode 1, from A Parallel Earth.
I remembered where I came from. And it wasn't Earth. Transmission, Origin, Earth-6139. A Lyran account. Date of download, unknown. I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear the whole thing before you decide I've lost my mind. Last year, during a guided meditation, one I almost didn't do, one I started as a joke because my friend wouldn't stop talking about past life regression, I remembered a place. Not like remembering a dream, not like remembering something someone told you. I remembered it the way you remember your childhood bedroom, with your body, with your senses, with such detail that I could draw you a map of it right now. The place was not on Earth. And I know how that sounds. I'm a 34-year-old electrician from a small town. I watch football. I grill on weekends. I am not the kind of person who says things like, I remembered a past life on another planet. But I did. And what I remembered has changed everything about the way I understand myself, my purpose here, and why I have felt, for my entire life, as long as I can remember, like I am unbelievably, impossibly old. Let me start at the beginning. I've always been the person people come to. Not for advice, exactly. More like, people calm down around me. Always have, since I was a kid. Teachers noticed it. My mom used to say I had old eyes. When a room gets tense, people look at me. I don't know why. I never tried to cultivate it. I just have this energy, apparently, that says, it's going to be fine. I believe that. I've always believed that, on a bone-deep level that I couldn't explain. Not optimism. It's not that bubbly. It's more like certainty. A quiet, unshakable certainty that everything works out, even when it doesn't look like it will. I've also always had this thing with cats. Not like I'm a cat person, like cats seek me out. Strays follow me. My neighbor's cat, who supposedly hates everyone, sits in my lap and purrs. At a shelter once, every single cat in the room oriented toward me when I walked in. The volunteer looked at me like I'd done something. I hadn't done anything. They just knew me, or recognized something in me that I didn't recognize in myself. Yet. And the dreams. I've had them since I was 6 or 7. Not nightmares, not regular dreams. These recurring visions of a place with 2 suns, one large and amber, one smaller and blue-white, and forests that went on forever, and buildings that looked like they'd grown out of the ground rather than been built on top of it. I'd wake up with this ache in my chest. Not pain, longing. The kind of longing you feel when you see a photograph of a place you lived as a child that no longer exists. Homesickness for a home you can't name. I told no one about the dreams. I told no one about any of it. Because what would I say? I think I'm homesick for a planet with 2 suns. No. I went to work. I paid my bills. I lived my life. And the ache stayed in the background, like a radio tuned to a frequency I couldn't quite hear. Then my friend Darius started getting into this stuff. Starseeds, past lives, metaphysical history. He's always been the spiritual one. Crystals on his dashboard, sage in his apartment, the whole thing. I loved him for it, but I didn't take it seriously. He started sending me articles about something called Lyran starseeds, souls from the Lyra constellation, one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. Feline-like beings, ancient, wise, displaced by a war, connected to cats, to fire, to ancient Earth cultures like Egypt and Lemuria. I read the first article to humor him. By the third article, my hands were shaking. Everything. Every single trait. The quiet leadership that people feel, but you never try to project. The love of freedom. The hatred of being controlled. The connection to cats. The feeling of being ancient. The ability to stay calm in chaos because you've seen worse. You've survived worse. Even though you can't consciously remember what the worse was. The dreams of other worlds. The homesickness. Darius said I should try a past life regression. I said no. I said it for 3 months. And then one night, after a particularly vivid dream, the 2 suns, the endless forest, and this time a sound, a frequency, a tone so pure and complex that it made me weep in my sleep. I said yes. Here's what happened. The regression was guided. A woman named Keiko who does this kind of work professionally. Nothing dramatic, no swinging pendulums. She had me lie down, close my eyes, and she walked me through a progressive relaxation. Body part by body part, letting go. It's the same kind of thing you'd do in a yoga class, except deeper, slower. She took me all the way down until I couldn't feel my body at all. Just awareness. Floating. Present, but detached from my physical self. And then she said, I want you to follow the feeling of home. Not your apartment, not your childhood house, the deeper home. The place your soul remembers. Let it pull you. I didn't expect anything to happen. I'm an electrician. I fix circuits. I don't follow the feeling of home to past life memories. But I did what she said, because I'd already driven across town and paid for the session, and I wasn't going to waste it. The darkness behind my eyelids shifted. Not dramatically, not a movie transition. It was more like the quality of the darkness changed. It got deeper, warmer, and I started to feel something pulling me, not physically, not directionally, but emotionally. Like homesickness in reverse. Like homesickness that had a current. I followed it. And then, I was there. I'm going to describe this as carefully as I can, because the details matter. Not because they prove anything. I can't prove this to you. But because the specificity of what I experienced is what convinced me that I wasn't making it up. You can invent a fantasy. You can't invent the smell of air on another world. I was standing in a forest. The trees were massive, not like redwoods, not like anything on Earth. They were broader, with smoother bark, and their canopies spread out in wide, layered fans, like enormous ferns made of dark green glass. The light came from 2 sources, a large amber sun low on the horizon, and a smaller, brighter blue-white star higher up. The double light created layered shadows, so everything had this softness to it, this depth of texture that I've never seen in any forest on this planet. The air smelled like... I've been trying to find the right comparison for a year now. The closest I can get is honey and cedar and ozone all at once. Clean but alive. Rich. The kind of air that makes your whole body relax the moment you breathe it. I was not human. I knew this immediately. My body was different. Taller. Leaner. My hands, when I looked down at them, were longer, with a slight iridescence to the skin, like the sheen on a soap bubble, but more subtle. And my perception was different. Wider. I could see farther, hear more, feel the vibrations of the forest itself. The trees, the soil, the water moving deep underground. It was like having 5 senses, plus 20 I don't have words for. Everything was connected. I could feel the forest the way you feel your own body, not as a thing I was looking at, but as an extension of myself. I was at home. That's the overwhelming emotional reality of the memory. I was home. The ache I'd been carrying for 34 years, the thing I thought was depression or restlessness, or just being a person who can't be satisfied. It was homesickness. For this. For a forest on a planet orbiting a binary star system in the Lyra constellation. A place I hadn't seen in, I don't know, thousands of years? Millions? The concept of time didn't apply the way it does here. I lived there. In the regression, I didn't just see a snapshot. I lived hours of it, compressed into what Keiko later told me was about 40 minutes of real time. I walked through the forest. I entered one of the buildings, the ones I'd seen in my dreams, the ones that looked grown rather than built. Because they were. The Lyran people, my people, and even writing that makes my eyes sting, didn't construct things. They grew them. They worked with the planet's biology. The buildings were living structures, woven from root systems and crystalline lattice, warm to the touch, resonant with a low hum that I could feel in my chest. Inside, there were others. My family. My community. I recognized them not by their faces. Their features were different from human features, finer, with larger eyes that had an unmistakably feline quality. But by their energy. I knew them the way you know someone's footsteps on the stairs. Each one had a distinct signature. Warm. Complex. Familiar in a way that made me want to sit down and weep. Because I had missed them without knowing I was missing anyone. We communicated without speaking. Not telepathy like science fiction portrays it. Not sentences projected into your head. More like emotional sharing. You'd direct your attention towards someone and your state would open to them. Your feelings, your intentions, your knowledge. It was all accessible if you allowed it. Privacy existed because you could close yourself off. But the default was openness. The default was connection. Imagine a world where every conversation you've ever had didn't require the translation step of turning feelings into words. That was how we lived. I saw what we did. We were keepers. That's the closest word. We tended the planet, not as farmers, not as engineers, but as custodians of a living system that we were part of. The trees, the soil, the water, the frequencies of the planet itself, we maintained their harmony. We could feel when something was off, the way you can feel when your own body is getting sick before the symptoms show. And we'd attend to it, adjust it, not by force, by resonance, by matching our own frequency to the frequency that was needed and letting the system heal itself. The feline beings were there too. I need to explain this because feline beings sounds absurd. They were not cats. They were an ancient, highly evolved race that had a hand in creating our civilization, in seeding it, in guiding its development. They had feline features, the eyes, the grace, the quality of attention. But they were immensely complex beings who existed across multiple dimensions simultaneously. They were our elders, our teachers, and they were patient with us in a way that implied they had been doing this for a very, very long time. The reason cats on Earth respond to me, the reason they respond to any Lyran soul, is because they carry a faint echo of that original feline frequency. They recognize it. Even through the forgetting, even through the veil of human incarnation, the frequency persists, and cats feel it. I saw the art. This is the part I want you to really hear, because it tells you something about what we valued. We made music. Not with instruments like humans use, with our bodies, with our voices, with the resonance of the structures we lived in. The entire civilization was, in a sense, a musical instrument. The buildings were tuned to specific frequencies. When you entered one, you stepped into a chord, a harmony. Different buildings for different purposes, different moods, different types of gathering. The sound wasn't decorative. It was functional. It healed. It connected. It maintained the coherence of the community, the way a heartbeat maintains the coherence of a body.
And the stars.
At night, their night, with the larger sun below the horizon and the smaller blue-white star still visible, they would gather on the high clearings above the forest canopy, and they would look at the stars. Not for navigation, not for science, for wonder. Pure wonder. The kind of wonder that humans feel for about 30 seconds when they look at the Milky Way from a dark place, and then forget about it by morning. These beings sustained it, lived in it, made it the centerpiece of their culture. The universe was not a thing they studied. It was a thing they loved.
I want to tell you about the fall, because you need to understand why I'm here. Why any Lyran soul is here, on Earth, in a human body, struggling with the density of this world. In the regression, the memory shifted. The warmth of the forest, the harmony of the community, the songs, all of it dimmed, like someone turning down the brightness on a screen. I felt it before I saw it, a wrongness, a dissonance. Something had entered the frequency of the planet that didn't belong there. The Draconians. I'm not going to turn this into a war story. I'm not going to dramatize it. What I felt in the regression was not exciting or cinematic. It was devastating. A civilization built on harmony, on openness, on the sharing of consciousness, encountering a force that was built on domination, control, and the extraction of power from others. We were not prepared, not because we were weak, because we literally could not conceive of what was happening. Our default was trust. Our default was openness. And a force that understood only consumption walked through that openness like walking through an unlocked door. I felt the decision to leave. Not the battle itself. I think my higher consciousness spared me that, or my human brain couldn't process it. But I felt a moment when the elders, the feline beings, the oldest among us, made the call. Leave. Scatter. Carry the seeds of what we were to other systems. Pleiades, Sirius, Vega, Orion, and eventually, Earth. The grief of that moment is the hardest thing I have ever felt. Harder than losing my father, which I thought was the worst pain a person could experience. Because it wasn't just losing a home, it was losing a way of being, a way of connecting, a frequency of existence where trust was the default, and beauty was the structure, and consciousness was shared freely, and the forest sang, and the buildings hummed, and the stars were not distant lights, but family. All of that, gone. Scattered to the wind of 100 star systems. And the souls that carried it forward, my soul apparently, were sent into incarnation cycles that would eventually bring them here. To Earth. To human bodies. To a world that, by Lyran standards, is almost unbearably dense, almost unbearably disconnected, almost unbearably loud with the noise of 7 billion minds that can't hear each other. I came out of the regression destroyed. I don't mean that metaphorically. I lay on Keiko's floor and I sobbed for 20 minutes. Not pretty crying, the deep, wrenching kind that comes from a place below the rib cage that you didn't know existed. I cried for a home I didn't know I'd lost. I cried for a family I couldn't remember. I cried for a way of being that this world doesn't even have a word for, because the concept doesn't exist here. And then, slowly, something else came. A warmth. Rising from the same place the grief had come from. Not happiness,
Something deeper. Recognition. Understanding. The feeling of a puzzle piece clicking into a hole you've been staring at for decades. Oh, this is why I feel old. Oh, this is why I'm calm in chaos. Oh, this is why cats know me. Oh, this is why I look at the stars and feel longing instead of curiosity. Oh, this is why I'm here. I've sat with this for a year now. I've gone back into regression 4 more times. Each session reveals more. Not dramatic new narratives, but texture, detail. The feeling of the forest floor under feet that were not human feet. The sound of the communal songs, which I can almost hear in certain states of deep meditation. A tone so rich and layered that human music sounds flat by comparison. The names of the feline elders, which don't translate into English, but carry emotional signatures that I can feel in my chest. And the mission. The reason we're here. Because we didn't scatter randomly. We came to Earth because Earth is going through what Lyra went through. Not the same way. Not an invasion from without, but a slow erosion of connection. A forgetting. A dimming of the frequency. Humans are losing the ability to hear each other, to feel each other, to recognize that they are part of a single living system. It's the same dissonance that preceded the fall of Lyra, just happening on a different scale, in a different way. And the Lyran souls, the old ones, the ones who carry the memory of what connection actually feels like, what harmony actually sounds like. We're here to remind them. Not by preaching, not by starting movements, by being, by carrying the frequency, by walking into a room and bringing the calm, by looking at someone who is afraid and radiating from the deepest part of ourselves. It's going to be fine. I've seen worse. I've survived worse. And everything works out. That certainty I've carried my whole life. The unshakable, bone-deep knowing that everything is going to be okay. It's not naive optimism. It's elder memory. It's the memory of a soul that watched its entire civilization fall, and then, instead of giving up, packed its bags, crossed the galaxy, put on a human suit, and went back to work. I'm an electrician. I fix circuits. I go to work every day and I do my job, and I come home, and I grill on weekends, and I watch football. And I am, by every external measure, an ordinary human being. But I remember the forest. I remember the double sunlight falling through the fan-shaped canopies. I remember the buildings that hummed. I remember the feline elders with their enormous, patient eyes. I remember the songs that held a civilization together. And I carry that memory, the way my grandmother carried her wedding ring. Not for show, not to prove anything, but because it connects me to something I love that I can't physically touch anymore. I'm going to say something that I've never said out loud, to anyone. And I need you to hear it the way I mean it. I think Earth is becoming what Lyra was. I think we're moving toward it. Slowly, messily, with all the stumbling and falling and fighting that humans do. I think the frequency is rising. I think the connection is rebuilding. And I think the old souls, the Lyrans, the Pleiadians, the Syrians, all the starseeds who came here from civilizations that knew how to live in harmony, I think we're the ones who were supposed to hold the template. Not build the new world. Hold the memory of what it felt like, so that when humanity is ready to build it, they know what they're building toward. That's why I'm here. That's why the dreams. That's why the cats. That's why the ache. I'm not homesick anymore. Or, I am, but it's different now. It's not an empty longing, it's a purposeful one. I miss Lyra the way a farmer misses the field they left to plant seeds in new soil. You miss it, but you know why you left, and you know the seeds are going to grow. If you're reading this, and something in your chest just tightened, if you felt the ache, If you saw the two suns, if you know the sound I'm talking about, even though I can't reproduce it in a human voice, then you know what I know. You're not from here, but you're here on purpose, and the forest remembers you, even now. Across all that space, all that time, all those incarnations, the forest remembers you, and it's waiting.